Thank you, Steve, for that kind introduction. Thank you all so much for giving us this opportunity to have a discussion. The Attorney General's office has had some troubles over the past several years. We're all aware of that. This is an election where Kansas has an opportunity to look forward and ask ourselves, what is it we want in the chief legal leader for the state of Kansas? I think it's a vitally important question. There is a reason that Kansas makes this a constitutional office, not just another position. And it's because Kansans, in their instruction manual to all of us, the state constitution, decided that they want someone who earns the trust of people around the state, who has to stand and defend what they have done and will do. We call it an election. And ultimately, it ought to be the people themselves who decide what direction they want this office to go. I bring to this race a very broad experience, both in the law and in public leadership. Consumer protection is vitally important to me. It's near and dear to my heart, and as I mentioned to you before, I spent a year personally standing up in court in the state of Kansas on behalf of Kansas consumers. In fact, some of the proudest moments I've had as a practicing attorney have been standing in front of a judge and saying, "Your Honor, my name is Derek Schmidt, and I appear today on behalf of the state of Kansas." I haven't combed through everybody's record here, but my suspicion is I have personally recovered more money for Kansas consumers than either of my opponents. I've served for the past 10 years in the Kansas Senate with the trust of the 67,000 people in the 15th State Senate District. I have worked very closely with leaders in Kansas law enforcement over every one of those 10 years. Not because I had to, not because the job description demanded it, but because I believe that the public safety mission of any public leader is one of the bedrock things you have to do if you stand up and take the oath. And that's why I was intimately involved in writing Jessica's law as the Senate leader on that. The headline piece of that, of course, is the long-term prison terms for violent child molesters who attack our kids, but there are other pieces in it, one of which were some of the investigative tools that are now being used by folks at the Attorney General's office to go after child predators. We gave them the tools they are now using. I chaired the 2005 Medicaid Task Force, and we recommended tools that we then enacted under my leadership to give the tools to our folks at the Attorney General's office to increase Medicaid recoveries, and I'm glad they're now doing it. As your Attorney General, I am absolutely committed to looking forward and running a professional, responsible, legal operation for this state. I will stand up every year, working with law enforcement and others around the state, and lead on an agenda to leave us safer at the end of the year than we were at the start of the year. It's a role I have played, often by default, as Senate Majority Leader. It is a role I'm excited to have the opportunity to play as your Attorney General.